the stream is live. Okay, so this is going to be an experiment. We're going to try doing a talk show of sorts. Those of you who might be watching might know me as Rhev, might know me as dosrev. We're going to do some gaming talk, and I've got one of my very good friends who I've met on the internet over the past few years. And despite the fact that he is a limey git, he lives in the UK, I somehow have managed to remain friends with him. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Loina. Loina, are you there?
Of course.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Always good.
Always good. So, what happened was we were talking a little earlier on Skype, and I said, this is the kind of stuff that people do podcasts about. I mean, why aren't I just podcasting this? And you're like, yeah, I would watch that. So I figured we'd go live with it. And I did think of the thing I wanted to talk about first with you, which is first, I'm 39. I just had my 39th birthday. You just had your 22nd birthday a few weeks ago, right? 22?
November, yeah.
So there's a big age difference. In addition to the big difference in our physical location, you being in the UK, me being in New York, USA. And one of the things I thought was kind of interesting and I wanted to get your take on is when I started playing video games as a 7-year-old playing Atari, you know, I never would have imagined something like this, where you meet someone on a video game and then you become friends with them and you know, even though you live in totally different countries. I mean, when I was a kid, it was something like pen pals. You might write to someone in another country, but usually that only happened once or twice, and then that was it. But I mean, you and I, we talk, I would say probably at least 5 or 6 times a week, you know, right?
Yeah.
We talk most.
There's rare times that we don't talk.
Yeah. And it's like if one of us gets busy, but that's about it. But now here's the thing I was wondering about with you. Like, you grew up in this culture, basically, right? You grew up in the culture of the internet and playing video games online and everything, right?
Yeah.
So
is your question more around how does it feel to start with in a more internet focused gaming society?
I guess more to the point of when you hear stories like this, when you hear saying things like, I remember a time when it wasn't just always on internet playing with everyone around the world, do you just think like, oh, Rhev, what a dinosaur you are?
Well, I'll call you a dinosaur any day of the week, but I do, it does always feel strange. Then again, I remember my dad getting, not even XP for the first time, and it being this huge event, just that the computer was now somehow more capable. And I remember loading up his laptop, using everything I'd known from XP, and trying to convert it to a Windows, I want to say 3.1 machine. And
yeah.
I just completely failing. So I know I've always known it as a big difference I've never experienced, but it's always felt quite alien.
It's always felt alien that people weren't just online, that there wasn't just this connection.
Yeah, that it's something that you know, that like, you know, the Black Plague was a thing, but you don't know quite what it's like, what the feeling was like.
Yeah. Well, I've got a viewer in this stream who is a couple years younger than me, sort of between us in age. And she says, dial-up Puzzle Pirates was cutting edge at one point. Now, if you don't know what Puzzle Pirates is, it is one of the best MMOs ever created. Have you ever seen Puzzle Pirates?
I have not.
Oh man, it was legit. So it's a massive multiplayer online puzzle solving role playing game. You play games like like those match 3 type games and Dr. Mario type games, and in doing these things, you do piratey type stuff like sword fight or you know, sail your ship. It was kind of wild, but there was, you know, it actually reminds me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Cable Guy with Jim Carrey.
I have not, but I am horrifically versed on movies.
Well, if you like Jim Carrey at all, it's worth checking out. And one of the things that's so fascinating about it is towards the end, his character is talking about the future of the internet. And one of the things, well, basically, he doesn't even call it the internet. He just talks about like the connectivity of the world, and that's the way the world is going. It's going to be more and more connected. And he mentions things like, you know, watching movies instantly at any time, and playing, like playing video games with your friends in Korea. And at the time that came out, it was like, yeah, that people could see that as like sort of a possible potential future, but it didn't seem very realistic. And his character is kind of crazy, kind of insane. So it's like, oh, look at this crazy madman. But literally everything he said, like, came to pass. Like, now, you know, I mean, you and I play Overwatch, and you know, those South Korean teams dominate things like StarCraft and League of Legends and all that.
I still have that screenshot, but it's just, I won against the team of Asians. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's well, I mean, you see how people compare Simpsons and go, oh, look what the Simpsons predicted over there. What is it now? 20 millionth seasons?
Well, I think they're they're over 25 seasons. I know. Are they at 30 seasons yet?
I want to say they're 28 off the top of my head, but I haven't given them a look in a long while. But I feel like that definitely falls into throw enough shit at the wall and something's gonna stick.
It could be.
But it is amazing that in the few things that we've managed to actually get from this alternate reality that those in the 80s and 90s predicted we'd be in, is what we actually got from it seems far more logical than what was predicted. But you also have to realize the times were a lot more optimistic to what we are now.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned realistic, because another thing that's fascinating to me is right now is this rise in virtual reality, and not just in gaming. Have you been taking a look at the virtual reality games that have been coming out, or have you been keeping up on that at all with the Views and the Oculus Rift? And I don't know if there's another one. I honestly, I haven't been keeping up with it, but some of these games are just really the most, I mean, they're almost not even games. They're almost like just tech demos that show what could be coming down the road in another 5 years. I almost said 10, but I had to scale it back to 5 just now. Have you been taking a look at that at all?
I have been very concerned about VR. So I get it, but I don't think the companies powering it do. So Oculus just released its touch controllers, so it's now on par with the Vive. The Vive is a full motion kit, as in you need space.
Right, like you set these things up on your walls or on stands or whatever, and then you can kind of walk around inside an area. Right? Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry, continue.
So there are 3 main requirements where it is only really in an industry where it's only really excusable to have 1 or 2. What I feel like will be the death of VR is if in the next 1 to 2 years they don't bring that price down to $200 or $300, VR will not survive.
Really?
Yeah. Because of just what we're seeing currently. The Vive released this year, as did Oculus, and instead of seeing really this huge surge or really great platform releases, what we're seeing is this very closed off community. It feels like a community you buy into, but not one that's going to become part of the bigger gaming community where, you know, we use a mouse and a keyboard or a controller or whatever. And I think mainly the big part of that is we have is a controller right now costs you $20, right? You can get it cheaper if you buy third party. A Vive costs you $800. I mean, I could buy a very, very high power PC, and for the same price I would be paying for all the VR games, I could get Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, you know, the big, great releases that would really show off that machine. Or I could get what some Unity dev threw together in 5 minutes and threw up on Steam Greenlight. VR is in a very desperate platform right now, and it does not have the support it needs. We saw Ubisoft throw out what was basically just a pity game in the form of that Falcon game that nobody gave a shit about like 5 minutes after it released. It's very much a platform that I don't think will survive because it is too expensive and too niche.
I would sort of agree in the sense that I think right now virtual reality is sort of in the hands of hobbyists. I mean,
yes,
you know, but can I play devil's advocate with you on something?
Go for it.
Okay, so 10 years ago, everything that you just said about virtual reality, people were saying about personal drones, you know, the flying drones. Drones were immensely expensive. You couldn't just walk into a toy store and buy a drone. You had to go to a specialized hobby store and buy kits and build your drones, or you'd have to order very expensive, like $1,000, $1,200 drones, and it was looked at like, oh yeah, you know, my uncle has a friend who has, like, you know, like you might kind of know someone who knew someone who had one. But now I think there's someone who lives down the street from me that has one, who's taken aerial photographs of my town, and I live in the middle of cowfuck nowhere. You know what I mean? I think you can get a drone for $100 or $200. So I guess my point I'm saying is, yes, right now virtual reality is in the hands of sort of the hobbyists, but that's sort of where new technology, where emergent technology, especially entertainment technology, sort of starts, isn't it? Like it starts out in the hands of hobbyists, and then you know, it grows in power and price comes down, becomes more affordable as it becomes more socially accepted, you know, things like that. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with you that the price point of it currently is going to be the death of it. I mean, we've seen that with, again, I'm a little older than you. I've seen that with a lot of technology over the years. You can build a gaming computer now for under $1,000 USD easily, and run pretty much any of today's games. Whereas, I mean, not that long ago, 15 years ago, if you wanted a gaming computer, you were spending $2,000 to $3,000. You know, and people did it constantly. But what were your other points where you thought that the games need to get better?
Well, I feel like we're at a stage where we're still trying to realize what we can do with VR, and I feel like had it stayed in that niche, or at least attempted to stay in that niche sense, we would have been in a much better place. But it isn't. It's trying to break out into this mainstream sense, like we saw with Kinect and PlayStation Move, which are very they're relics of their time, really. Now you look at a Kinect and you laugh at it because it's such a piss poor product, that when the idea of Kinect is brought up, people laugh at it. And I do feel like VR is, in some sense, motion controls in disguise.
Well, I mean, it shares a lot of the same technology. You
Yes,
know,
yeah.
especially these ones where you have to mount them on the walls or put them on stands or whatever. You know, it does use that same. I think it does use a lot of that same tech.
Yeah. Well, put it to you this way, I hardcore game. I like some, you know, I game a lot. I put some good use on my gear. I could not fit either an Oculus or a Vive in here, unless it was the Oculus Rift without the touch controls. And that would just be because I would be sitting here with a screen on my face.
Right.
And I think I'm in a situation where most gamers are now, especially when you come to think about college dorm rooms where people are still trying to get high power PCs in them and only just doing it. You remember Villa was had his PC in a college dorm room and he was having a hell of a time. Imagine trying to get VR in a college dorm room, or imagine trying to get a 16-year-old trying to convince his parent that VR is the thing that all his classmates want. It seems so unfeasible that I feel like I might just be being I might just look back on this in a couple of years and laugh, but it very much feels like we're in a situation where VR is going to die a slow death, and there's still going to be quite a lot of excitement in it right up until the moment we don't see any developments in it.
See, I just don't know if I can agree with you. I don't see I think the technology has definitely gotten past the point where it is at that make or break point. I don't think that it's going to die. Cortraption in Twitch chat mentioned that Ray Bradbury predicted virtual reality and some of the uses that we're seeing today in the book Fahrenheit 451, where consumers would create a virtual reality environment in their homes, and they would basically be able to upgrade their walls into televisions. And I wanted to go off that we've seen that in a lot of other sci-fi movies. I mean, things like Total Recall, the original with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, oh, there's a window and it's looking out as a thing, and then he goes, oh, TV on, and then all of a sudden the window changes into, the television. And we've seen, I think it's also interesting that it ties into things like with Google Glass, where they're, a little bit bigger than a pair of glasses, and they fit over the head, and then we can have things like augmented reality. I think you're going to start seeing this real blurring of the lines between gaming and augmented reality and virtual reality, where as gamers start to pick their niche, there's going to be this blurring. I mean, I think the success of Pokemon Go really showed that a lot of people have this interest, this real interest in sort of augmented reality games. And I've read articles about Google would like to eventually have some crazy, I don't even have any idea how they would do this, but have basically their Google Glass in contact form. So when you could literally be walking around in an augmented reality world at all times. And the obvious applications are, oh, I see you, and immediately a context box pops up that gives me all your details, your wife, your where you live, etc. Well, not your wife, obviously, but
not yet.
But at the same time, it could also be, I'm walking around. Oh my God, there's a Pikachu, and my headphone just fell. Oh my God, there's a Pikachu, and I just pull out my phone and swipe and throw a Pokemon.
Cortraption, I don't want to interrupt you, but Cortraption did bring up a good point that does mute mine a little. But AR is the future of VR. AR and VR are two very different things. I do feel like what we're going to see is VR move away from what it's currently being used for and into AR. which is augmented reality. Everyone's used it in the form of Pokemon Go.
I didn't
didn't.
play Pokemon Go.
I know you did.
No,
I know because
okay,
you installed it
I
for like 24
downloaded
hours.
it and installed it, and then it told me to pick a team, and I'm like, nah, that's okay. And then I uninstalled it.
Well, Pokemon Go was actually, to move on to that subject, was a really interesting experiment that AR can work. What I think's happened is Nintendo really fucked AR on that one. I don't think people are going to be buying into Pokemon Go like games as well as they did Pokemon Go, because while there are franchises people would love to see just as much as Pokemon in augmented reality, I think Pokemon Go has definitely soured the tastes of many casual gamers to this idea of augmented reality or VR. It's really going to be telling in the next 5 years of where we go. But I did like what you were mentioning about Google and what they're trying to do with Google Glass. I felt like Google Glass became a bit of a failed experiment, but I do feel like there's something behind it, and I really do like the concept.
Well, okay. The first virtual reality games that I was exposed to, I mean, maybe it wasn't the first one per se, but the first virtual reality games I was exposed to go way back to the 90s. Nintendo put out a terrible piece of equipment. I think it was called the Virtual Boy, and it was this it was this red, almost binocular looking thing that it would sit on a tripod, and you would put your face into it, and it would have two tiny little 312 by 312 pixel screens, and it would I mean, that was sort of the first attempt at virtual reality gaming in a sense. I don't know if you would really call that virtual reality, but in the same sense, maybe what we saw with Google Glass is the first sort of legitimate attempt at augmented reality, well, electronically augmented reality gaming. But here's another thing. We talked about gaming, but one of the things that is very exciting in virtual reality with the Vive and Oculus Rift is here in the States, our most popular sport is football. And mind you, it's football, because the sport that you play is soccer. We've gone over this many times. The sport that you enjoy is not football, it's soccer. But football here in America, the head of the football in the U.S. is called the NFL, National Football League. They've started talking about they want to develop a program where people can pay a fee, and they will be able to virtually go into the stadium and watch the game from like one of 20 different spots around the stadium. Like there'll be 20 different cameras. So you'll be sitting on your couch, you'll have your virtual reality goggles on, and it'll be like you're sitting at the 50-yard line. And then, like, if the play shifts downfield, you just hit a button on your controller, and now you're in a different spot. Or you hit a different, and now you're looking, from the overhead cam, and you can watch the same play in overhead cam. And that also will let you, like, literally rewind the action as if you would on a DVR. And that's not necessarily gaming, as an interactive form, like playing a video game, but it's definitely sports gaming and related. And the fact that the NFL is getting in on that really makes me think that if they're willing to jump on, it's not dying. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, we've seen sports channels or sports in general really trying to make a push into finding new ways to get this media or get even new entertainment to the fans. We saw ESPN allowing, I believe, Dota 2 on their on the TV channel, and we got a bit more. I feel like this is more of a push. It's more very experimental, but I do like the concept. I think it's a very easy sell as well because you see with BlizzCon, them selling what they call the virtual ticket, so that you can virtually see all the shows and see what's happening with your favorite games, and not just have to be told. I think it would be a very easy sell, especially when you could sell it under the guise of VR. But I don't think it will work until we have a more mainstream acceptance of VR. And I feel like VR, if it took off, would only ever become as successful as, say, the mechanical keyboard business. It would feel more like an option rather than a way to play.
Well, I would definitely agree with you in the sense that right now VR's biggest problem is currently the price point. I think that even though a lot of the games right now are very much just tech demo, and not so much no, you got to turn that light back on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So I went to open up Steam to go check where what was happening with the VR over there. I probably should open up a tab actually. Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Cortraption says, yeah, affordability is important, but that is the overall trend in technology. And I could point out half a dozen technologies that I know of in my lifetime that the prices come down. I don't know a single person in my entire life that doesn't own a microwave, for example. But my parents, when I was a little kid, they were the first person on the entire block. They were the first person out of anyone they knew to own a microwave. And they paid something like $800 or $900 for it. It was a ridiculously expensive technology, but that price came down. I think you can buy a microwave on Amazon for like $80 now. That's what happens with technology. Now, hold on a second. I want to just jump into one other thing, though. Now, in addition to, I do love the microwave story. In addition to the price point, though, the second biggest problem is content. Because as I said, if you've taken a look at any of the stuff that's out there now, there's some really cool stuff where you can do like digital 3D paintings, but there's not a lot that's interesting. Now, that brings in the thing that I was saying about the NFL. If the NFL is delivering, even if it's a pay by game thing, that's massive content to a huge player fan base. And then it also opens up this idea of, well, I would love to go on vacation and see Stonehenge, but I'm not going to get on a plane, go over there. And plus, they've now closed Stonehenge off. You can't walk around without special permits. But what if someone could just completely VR film, every angle, and now I can put on my goggles, go around, and maybe even hear Morgan Freeman's voice telling me a story about it. You know what I mean?
That man could read the phone book.
Yeah. Everyone loves Morgan Freeman. Plus, here's the other thing. What might it entail with the interactivity involved in distance gaming? I know a lot of people who have met their spouses online. Now, myself included, I met Angie over the internet. But I know several couples who met their husband or wife playing EverQuest, playing, WoW, Star Wars, etc. I mean, we have a friend who just recently broke up with her boyfriend, but they met in Star Wars.
Yeah. And they, for reference, they actually went and met in real life as well.
Yeah. But they dated for what, 2 or 3 years?
Bear in mind they broke up, I want to say a month and a half ago. About 2 years. One thing I would mention is the state of VR on Steam, because if you're going to sell it to gamers, it's going to need to be on Steam.
Fair enough.
screw the Oculus Store. If you want to sell to gamers, it's got to be on Steam. To the mainstream, rather.
Okay.
So, the top selling game on Steam, which is actually quite surprising, is Arizona Sunshine. This is a standard zombie. I believe it's just a standard zombie horde mode, but it's the first one done well. However, this was a game that locked off modes to certain processors, as in, if you didn't have an i7 processor, you couldn't play this horde mode. Intel processor, that is. The next one is Smashbox Arena, which looks like a very half-done game. It wouldn't convince me to buy VR at all. Then there's Tilparush, which is Google's thing, which is, for someone like me who is about as artistic as throwing a brick through a window, it's very meh.
Now, just to clarify, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. You did say brick as in a fired piece of clay, not Brit as in what you are?
Yes, brick.
Okay.
There is it's a game called Onward, which looks like Unity Asset Store, the VR game. Lethal, which is, all of these games that are on here were the top sellers back when the Vive came out, or at least most of them are. Like, there's still the walk on a plank outside of a skyscraper and have a bit of vertigo, and that will last you all of 11 minutes. There's the standard ping pong game. You know, it's all very, let's make a game, sell it for $15, and then hope for the best. So the VR marketplace right now is just not there. I think it's fair to say. That said, for more of a virtual interaction, you know, maybe a bit of e-dating, if you want to put it that way, I don't see much more of a use than what we than MMOs have already offered. It seems very much like we're just gonna experience, like, if that became a thing, it would be very much a it would very much be just two people in a room, and it's hard to say where VR will go, but it doesn't seem like that'll be an option it would follow into very much.
Okay, I want to dip. I feel like we're covering a lot of same ground here, and I feel like we're sort of arguing in circles. Contraption seems to says it's in its infancy, and I think that's fair, and I think that's very much the point I'm at. Let's dig deep into this for 1 second, okay? Now, again, mentioning I'm 39, I've seen a lot of technology come in. I've seen some go. No one uses laser discs. No one uses mini disc. I've seen a lot of technology. No one uses DivX players, even though the codex is now used online everywhere. I would like to know why it is that you, as a 22-year-old, okay, like, what is it specifically that makes you think, you've said VR will die, is probably going to die out. Or you've also said that it's going to morph and we're going to see a rise in augmented reality as it replaces virtual reality. Yeah. Can you go into why you think that VR gaming doesn't have the future? Like, why, not necessarily the reasons that you've listed in terms of price and lack of current content, but looking forward to the future, why don't you see it as an emergent gaming technology?
So I was around, I was still fairly young, but I was there when DVD became a thing. And I feel like the reason DVD became a thing was around the PS2, because I believe that offered DVD support, was around it being a cheaper, better, easier medium to store. It could hold much more. It was much thinner than a VHS. You didn't have to worry about your tapes being mangled by a VHS. You know, it was just a better medium on about 87% of the things it challenged VHS on. When VR games come around, they are better in completely different ways. What VR and traditional gaming clash on, VR always loses. What VR has currently is more of a it corners its own market. The issue is I don't believe there's a market there at that price point, or even in the homes that we live in currently, which just don't have that space. I'm thinking if I wanted VR, I would have to go into my downstairs living room at best, and even then, I would be bumping into shit left, right, and center. I mean, for you do have a space.
Right. For anyone watching, I've got a green screen behind me, but I'm in a room that's probably about 12 feet wide by about 20 to 25 feet deep. My den is rather large. It's the largest room in my house. I absolutely could set up a VR space here if I wanted.
Yeah. For someone, me, even though I live in a big house, it's not mine. Don't count as a brag. It's just not a possibility. You know, shit would have to be moved to make that even possible, and then you'd have to move it all back. You know, I can wake up, I can get in my chair, and I can play a round of Hearthstone if I want to. I can't do that with VR. That VR takes like 20-30 minutes set up, 20-30 minutes close down. You know, you can't just nonchalantly, casually game on VR. You very much have to be a hardcore gamer. You have to have thought about wanting to game beforehand. You can't have thought about wanting to, you know, you can't just go, yeah, I could go for a game currently. Because then you've got to make sure that your next at least 2 hours are clear. Because, you know, if you're going to have a 1 hour gaming session, which by all accounts is not possible on our current systems because they are incredibly uncomfortable, may cause you headaches, or may cause you nausea.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you that space limitation is definitely an issue for things like virtual reality where you have to set up a mobile space. But I know people that have the virtual reality goggles where they sit in their computer chair, they boot up their computer, they boot up their VR system, they put their goggles on, and then they can play things like flight simulators. And as they're playing their flight simulators, if they turn their head like this, their view that they see turns and looks out of the cockpit. You know, yeah. Or if you're driving an F1 racer, you can do this and see you can see the turn as it's coming up and make your turn. And I don't feel like that necessarily takes up a lot of additional space. But one thing, I'm going to jump topics because, again, I feel like we're really just going around and around. And one thing I wanted to bring up before we get too far away from it that I wanted to bring up, Contraption mentions, there's also a huge VR market for 2 or more people in one room, adult market. And I'm not 100% sure that what she meant by this was pornography, but I want to bring that up. Looking at entertainment technology that has failed in the past, one thing that, and I'm not saying this is why they have failed, but one thing that has universally been shared across a lot of failed entertainment technology has been a restriction against adult entertainment. Betamax was the far superior format to VHS recording. Betamax was owned by Sony exclusively, and they refused to allow any adult content, any pornography on it. A lot of experts have said that alone was the reason why VHS took off and Betamax did not. DivX, I mentioned. If you don't know what DivX is, don't worry about it. It's like DVDs with a twist. No pornography. It failed. Laserdisc. I don't believe Laserdisc had any pornographic titles. They were very, structured about what they wanted. Now, on the flip side of this, there is virtual reality porn. I don't own a VR. I haven't seen it, but I know that it exists. You can go and lay in your bed, put your goggles on, and jerk off. And as you're looking through your goggles, you're looking at a woman, above you. And you can do things like this and move around. And as you're doing that, you get you get the sense that you're looking around her, which is insane. I mean, that's crazy. I don't even know how they do it. I don't care either. And also you put your headphones in, and if she leans in and whispers and she leans to your left side, it only comes out of your left. So, I did want to address Contraption's point that there is this sense for the adult market, and what I mentioned earlier about VR possibly coming out of the gaming world and into the dating world. Well, what happens if you can go on a date with someone and you have a beautiful dinner in front of the Eiffel Tower virtually, and then you take a walk on the sand dunes in Egypt, and then you go back to your bedroom, like you know what I mean, and you can have your avatar virtually uploaded, and she has her virtual, or I'm sorry, in your case, you and him. I know, cheap joke, but that's okay. I don't know. I mean, based on that alone, don't you think that there's going to be a demand for that line of virtual reality to continue?
Okay, so I'm going to address those points one by one as much as I can. Porn VR, I think, will probably go into the mobile market, which is something I didn't discuss mostly because I forgot about it. Galaxy's VR is, from what I'm told, quite good, but I'm also told the best use of it is porn. I'm not gonna dress that one up. It is 100% just whack it to you, make it. And I feel like if that does take off, it's gonna take off in the mobile market, because no one wants a fucking Oculus Rift strapped to their face while they're jerking it. The date idea is nice. It's a good idea. I like it, but it's not something we're going to get until that technology is far more advanced. We can't do a long walk currently. We can do about as much space as you got, because unless we get those treadmills down to stupidly cheap prices, we're not gonna be able to properly imitate movement.
Okay, yeah. I mean, walking in place definitely feels a lot different than actually walking. Anyone who has used a Nintendo Wii, I have a Nintendo Wii with that fitness board thing, and whenever I do the things where I have to run in place, it definitely does feel different. It doesn't feel like quite the same thing. I'll give you that.
The dinner in front of the Eiffel Tower, we're not going to get until we get full hand control. And there's a theme that I'm making here, is that we're not going to get these things until we get X technology, and we're not going to get X technology unless we develop VR. And we're not going to be able to develop VR unless we have these things. It really feels like a catch-22. VR is not going to be very attractive until we have these things.
Okay. Let's take it into the technology that we have now. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Now, we're both MMO players. We met playing Star Wars. You're currently playing World of Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft for like 9 or 10 years. I played EverQuest before that. the graphics that are in EverQuest are far worse than some of the stuff I've seen in VR. So we can absolutely replicate EverQuest at the very least in a VR world. Wouldn't you agree with that?
EverQuest in the VR world is not really a matter of graphical issues. It's more, we can do that.
Okay. So let me just
we can do it graphically.
Let me get to my point though. So not. So you've said things like, "Well, I don't feel like there is the games are there. You don't feel like this." Really, all it's going to take is one breakout MMO where the person is sitting in their chair in front of their computer, but instead of looking at a monitor, they put their VR goggles on. And maybe they're still just using their keyboard and mouse, and all it's going to take is that one breakout hit. And I think we're going to see a massive shift in the paradigm of how MMOs are being played. We've seen, I've been reading for years now that the MMO market is dying, and I don't believe that's true. I think the MMO market just settled into the place that it is.
Yeah.
And what we might see is this fusion with MMOs and VR to take both of them to the next level. I mean, again, you play as a healer in WoW, right?
Yes.
You play a paladin.
Yeah.
So imagine you're on your raid and you're healing. Instead of tab targeting, let's say you've got one hand on your keyboard and another hand on this little controller stick, and you point at the people that you want to heal. You're looking around, you're like, oh, main tank, I'm targeting him, and I'm healing. I better do an area of effect heal, and then maybe, I don't know, woo, this is your area of effect. You do, the motion controls. Oh, okay, talk to you later, Contraption, thanks for joining. I mean, can't you see how something like that could be the next sort of stage? It could easily be integrated into, the technology we have now, the games we have now. And on top of that, let me just point out, I know you know the anime Sword Art Online.
I'm aware of it. I've never watched it.
Oh, okay. Well, Sword Art Online was an anime that was created around this idea of virtual reality MMO gaming, and then people get stuck in it, which is a ridiculous concept, but it's an anime, so whatever. Well, they're developing a Sword Art Online that is exclusively virtual reality. So, I think there's a lot of potential there, don't you?
So, in fact, let me just double check this one.
Okay.
I'm just double checking making sure I'm not about to say something stupid. Okay, so Sword Art Online is really the perfect idea to make an MMO on. It is literally an MMO in its own essence. It is, you can't do much. You don't, it's already laid out for you. This is how this works. This is how X works. This is how Y works. At least to my knowledge. The reason they haven't made an MMO for that is that, they have. They've made a very, very cheap, very, very quick cash-in MMO, and that's it. MMOs are extremely expensive to make. Can you imagine trying to make an MMO which, let's say at best, has optional Oculus abilities? So you could put on the headset and you could, zap people with your button. I feel like the controls would just immediately go out the window because I would want to use my keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
I think you, especially as someone who's been gaming for since the Earth was in the Ice Age, it's been you would like to use a keyboard or a controller or whatever. You want that firm tactile input that we know and love, and that when you push a button on a keyboard, it's going to do something, and you know that thing is familiar to you. When you said, hey, instead of tab targeting, my brain immediately went, hang on a minute, but I can just Tap target. Like, it's that easy to just tap target, especially when I'm healing. I've gotten quite good at just split second tap targeting. There's very few things that would ever make me go, yeah, I don't want a keyboard, I want something else to heal with. And I definitely don't think VR is going to be that thing. Especially as most MMOs are played from a third-person perspective for good reason. It gives you the most perspective on the battlefield, so to speak. Putting that into first person, you are limiting yourself to a much shallower FOV that can never be replicated in first person.
It makes sense. I mean, that definitely makes sense. But at the same time, let me bring up this point. We both played WildStar for a very short time. And healing in that was much different. There was no tab targeting. It was all action targeting. Yes. At no point when you were playing that did you feel like, oh, God, you know, I wish I could just tab target, because it was a different game. Yeah. You know, it was not World of Warcraft. It was not EverQuest. It was not Star Wars. It was a different game. And so I feel like if there was a game where it was designed where you were playing from first person and you pointed your controller at the monster that you were shooting a fireball at or the player that you were trying to heal, then that would just be the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly how WildStar did it without tap targeting. I can't actually remember how WildStar did it, mostly because of how little we played that.
It was like you would start an ability, and it would put like a reticle on the ground, and it was usually like a cone or a line or something.
Oh, I remember.
And then you would click the button, and then it would fire.
Yeah, there was an element of aiming to it. I don't want to say that that was one of the reasons why WildStar was not taken as seriously as it could have been, but it definitely felt like that was one of the reasons why people raised their eyebrows at it. Along with all the shitty development it went through. When you add the element of chance or element of I could miss this shot, I feel like that turns off a lot of traditional MMO players. I don't think a VR MMO would appeal to even half of, say, WoW's audience. I reckon you would get...
Okay, hold on. Let me just stop you for a second. That's not really fair to say half of WoW's audience, though. Because you're taking the biggest MMO with the biggest player base and saying, try to get half of that. An MMO can be wildly successful and make their company a ton of money with 1/100th of WoW's audience. And we've seen that where you've got these games like EverQuest that are still running and still making money with something like, 50. I think they don't give out their subscriber numbers anymore, but like 15 to 20,000 players as opposed to like 12 million. You know what I mean? Like at its height, I think WoW was over 12 million players. And I think they're down to about 7 million now. They hit a huge spike in Legion.
Yeah, and then they've come back down again.
Yeah, so let's just say it's 6 million. So, a tenth of that would be 60. I'm sorry, 100th of that would be 60,000 players. Any new MMO would kill to get 60,000 players. In addition to that, one of the biggest flaws in MMO gaming, in my mind, has been the fact that going back to EverQuest in 1999, EverQuest kind of set this price point of $15 a month, and then you get a discount if you do it cheaper. It's been 17 years at this point, and MMOs are still only charging that same amount. There's been no inflation in the monthly cost to play these MMOs. I think that if a game came along and it was groundbreaking enough, if there was a VR game, they could easily say, okay, it's $30 a month. And I think that people wouldn't bat an eyelash at paying that. And, you know, you do that, and then now, if you only have 10,000 people playing, you're making as much as every other MMO with 20,000 players. I mean, just on the monthly fee. But
Nice.
listen, we're coming up on about an hour, and I want to try to keep this at right around an hour. And we've talked about a couple different things. I really wanted to talk mostly about distance gaming and things like that, but we went into VR and it just turned into a whole rabbit hole, which is fine. But I feel like I kind of wanted to give you the last word on it. And again, you don't really Twitch stream. I know you don't really have anything to plug, but if you have any last words or any plugs you wanted to get in before I kind of bring this to a close.
YouTube.com/Loina.
/Loina, and you want so it's your name is there on the screen, so it's youtube.com. Is it /Loina or /user/Loina?
Oh, hang on. /user/Loina.
Yeah, some funny stuff on there. All right, well, listen, I'd like to thank you. I think this worked out pretty well. This is the first time I'm trying this, so I don't know. We had one person.
You brought me.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Of course it did. You brought me.
Yeah. We had a couple different viewers. Only one person really talked, but I was checking the viewer list. We had a couple different people tuning in, and I'm going to see if I can't highlight the VOD, the video on demand, and see if other people can check it out later. I think it was kind of interesting. I want to do it again. We got, as you know, we've got a couple other friends. Maybe get one of the hot girls as opposed to a friggin' pasty, skinny, pale-ass git.
I know, I'm not the eye candy here.
No. But like I said, this was sort of a test pilot episode, and I'd like to thank you very much for being a part of it. And hopefully it wasn't too structured and formatted. I wanted it to just be kind of like our normal chats go, so
yeah.
I think it worked out pretty well. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up. And thank you very much, Loina, for being a part of it. And thank you to any of my viewers who tuned in. Thank you to Cortraption for asking and participating in chat. And if you are just tuning in now at the end, this will be up on my video on demand very shortly. My guest today was Loina. He is a Brit. That's why he is so pale. We talked mostly about virtual reality and the future of virtual reality and gaming and so on and so forth. And I think we're going to do this again. And I'm sure I'll have Loina back on. Thanks for watching. Take care.